What's up everyone, Josh here, and these are my 20-1 Premier League predictions. Now, last year I done pretty good actually on the predictions compared to some other YouTubers that do it, and a lot of my friends. I actually had one of the highest scores, but this year is super difficult. Had a talk through it with some colleagues, some mates, and been umming and ahhing, changing teams, putting teams higher and lower, but we're going to do our best, and ultimately it's all a bit of fun, but if we get a lot right, we'll call it ball knowledge. And we're not going to waste too much time here today, guys. I'm going to give you the opinions for why I've got these teams placed there, the full rankings, and then some award shouts and random picks afterwards as well. But just before we get into it, if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do. Honestly, it means the world. We're nearly at 100 subs, and every view, like, comment, and share really means a lot to me. We're going to get straight into it now, and we're going to do this in groups of 4 because largely I think that's the range for which most of the teams I have in a certain zone can be. You know, there's always surprises. Last year Tottenham, most people had them top 10, they finished 17th, but for the most part I think you'll see these teams in and around where I've put them. So to start with, in 20th place we've got Hull City, in 19th Coventry, 18th Ipswich, and 17th I've actually gone with Fulham. So I think it's no shock to anyone that I've got the 3 promoted teams to go straight back down. Sadly, the level of the Championship is just nowhere near the Premier League right now, and while Sunderland recruited so well last year, I don't see any of the same level of recruitment out of any of the new promoted teams. I do like Ipswich to have a better season than the other 2 teams. I think home form is important, and I think the way they play will lend themselves to getting better results at home than a Coventry, who are going to try press from the front, play expansive football. I think you'll get caught out a lot of times in the Prem, as we've seen teams before like Norwich, who came up, tried to play the same way they did in the Championship, got ripped apart. I also think Gary O'Neill is the best Premier League manager out of the 3. Obviously, Jakirovic has never managed in the league, so he could be great, but I don't see it personally. And Frank Lampard, we've seen him twice in the Premier League, once with Chelsea, once with Everton, and neither time I was that impressed by him. I don't think he's a bad manager, but I don't think Coventry have enough talent in the squad, and I don't think they'll play the right way in terms of getting points at home and on the road. So then we get to Fulham. This would be the lowest they've come since they got relegated, actually, back in 2020. So I don't think it's a case of hating Fulham's squad or manager. You know, even though Arbeloa is unproven, I think at Madrid he was okay. And if you can be okay at Madrid, I think you can be okay anywhere else pretty much. So I think it's more a thing of, I was trying to look at the other teams and think, who do I actually like Fulham more than? And obviously the answer is none. I like a lot of the other teams' business a lot more than them. I think depth-wise, they're probably the weakest team of the teams that were in the league last year. And again, unproven manager, lost a lot of players. Harry Wilson left, so I think that's a massive loss. They haven't replaced him, and I think 17th, not really in a relegation battle, but I think it could be a transitional year for Fulham. On to 16th now, and I've got Crystal Palace, followed up by Newcastle, who are then followed by their neighbours Sunderland, and Everton are going to be in 13th place. Obviously for Crystal Palace, new coach Pierre Sage, who was good in Ligue 1, however, you never really know how that's going to translate to the Premier League. They've lost a lot of key players. It looks like they're going to lose Daniel Munoz as well, who, whilst he might not fit the new manager's plans, is undoubtedly a quality player. And they haven't done a lot of business. Not a lot I like, really, to be completely honest. I like some of the players I already have, Tariq Mitchell, Ismail Assar, JD Camvo, but I don't actually feel that inspired by Palace. I think their home form last year compared to the years prior wasn't as good, and I can't see them taking too many points off the big teams away from home. So I think they're just gonna fall into that bracket with Fulham in terms of bottom of the table, but probably not near relegation. Yeah, Newcastle, wow. I mean, I feel for their fans, you know. Every year it feels like they've been getting turned down by their number 1 option, their number 2 option. They've not been able to strengthen properly, and they've lost their best players year on year. We've seen it this summer, Anthony Gordon, Bruno Guimaraes. It's tough, it's very tough, but I can't really see a world in which they come above 14th, to be completely honest. And yeah, Matthias Yassel, maybe a good coach, maybe not. I think it's going to be a massive year in terms of blooding in the youngsters that they've signed and making sure that they actually go into next season with real continuity, real confidence. But I think for this season, it's going to be tough. And Sunderland is a completely different story. I think actually they're one of the better teams in the league last year in terms of home form. I believe they finished top 4 in a home record. And I think that the European toll, which is something you're going to hear a lot going forward, is going to take a lot out of them. And even though I think they're a great side, I think managing Europe as well as the Prem, as well as the other domestic competitions, it's very, very tough. So I could see slight regression in the league this year, but I still think on any given day, they can beat pretty much any side in this league. Then we have Everton, who I did have higher than this originally, I'll be completely honest, but had a look again and the squad just isn't there, is not there. And even though they don't have Europe, I think they needed a lot more quality in the forward areas of the pitch. Defensively, they're great. Jordan Pickford, Tarkowski, Jake O'Brien, Michael Keane had a great season last season. Who would have expected that? But I think going forward, there is a massive hole. I think Iliman Ndiaye is quality. Didn't have a great season last year in terms of numbers, but when you actually watch Everton games, he's top. He might still leave the club. I don't think he will now. But if he does, this is another reason why I don't think Everton will come anywhere near the European spots. But I think Tiano Barry has to have a massive season. As always, shout out for the goal last year against City and the performance. We'll never forget. But he has to have a massive season. And I'm not sure Beto and Barry up front are going to be enough to score the goals needed to mount a real charge for Europe this year. We've got Bournemouth, we've got Brighton, we've got Leeds, I've put Brentford. Now, Bournemouth, again, like I said for Sunderland, I think the European tax is going to weigh heavy on them this season. They have lost a lot of key contributors in the last calendar year. And whilst I do like Marco Rosa as a replacement, I don't think he's going to start as well as Andoni Iraola left off last season. And I think it could take some time for them to get going. They have some really hard fixtures at the start of the year as well. Starting the season at the Etihad, very tough. But I do like their squad, and I think actually they have some of the most exciting prospects in the league. Truffert, if he continues to take another step, could be one of the best left backs in the league. Eli Junior Krupi is just set to be the next superstar striker sale, I think. And Alex Scott, if he stays, is tremendous as well. They brought in Juan Luis Sanchez at right back, and they've got a lot of young, promising assets in defence. But I think ultimately that Bournemouth will fall short in the Premier League because they'll have a very good run in the Europa League. Brighton, similar reasoning as to Bournemouth, again, the European toll, but I think are a bit more stable. The manager's been there, a lot of the players have been there for a few years, compared to Bournemouth, who are going through a lot of change. So I think Brighton actually have the edge, but I could also see Bournemouth flip-flopping if Junior Krupi comes back from his injury and really hits the ground running. But I like a lot of Brighton's assets. Jack Hinchelwood, I think, is so underrated. I think he's a very, very good midfielder. I also like Pascal Gross as a leadership figure. They did lose Danny Welbeck, but they have Ruter, who I like up front. They've still got Matoma and Minter on the wings, Kadioglu, De Kuyper, Lewis Dunk at the back, not to mention Luka Vuskovic, who they bought from Tottenham, who I think may just be one of the best young players in Europe this season. Then we go on to Leeds, who I think actually might be winners of the transfer window. Muharemovic looks like an absolute monster at the back, coming from Serie A. James Trafford for 40 million, yes, it's a lot of money, but ultimately he's a quality goalkeeper who's only going to get better with age, you would hope. So I think those two players, along with Harry Wilson, you know, in those attacking areas off the right, in behind the striker, I think that adds another dimension to their game that they didn't have last season. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin can stay healthy, he's a consistent Premier League striker. And I really do think Daniel Farke has now kind of found a formula where they're going to be so tough to beat, home and away. I mean, Ellen Road, we all know what the crowd is like at Ellen Road, but even away from home, playing Leeds is not going to be easy this year. And lastly, we have Brentford, who I think are going to continue their climb, and I think will have a comfortable season. Don't quite have them in Europe because I think just about don't have enough quality in the midfield area. I do like Damsgaard, who was there last year, obviously. I absolutely love the addition of Sangare in midfield from Lons, but I also think that Igor Thiago will have a heavy burden for goals. Kevin Schade, I really like, but his end product needs to be better and more consistent, and he needs to stay healthy as well. If not, I think their wide play could suffer a bit, but defensively with Coyote, Christopher Ayer, they are solid, and I think they will have another good season. In 8th place now, I've actually got Nottingham Forest. In 7th place, I've got Aston Villa. In 6th place, I've got Tottenham Hotspur. And in 5th place, Manchester United. Nottingham Forest, I really love the Glasner hire. I'm quite shocked, to be honest, that he didn't go to a Milan or a team in Europe that really is looking for a top manager. I can't believe he actually went from Palace to Forest, which feels like a bit of a sideways, if not downwards move. However, it must be said that the Forest squad is a lot better than the Palace squad currently. I think they really suit what he wants to do. Nico Williams and Ola Aina, you can already see playing the Tyrick Mitchell and Daniel Munoz roles very effectively. Morgan Gibbs-White, Igor Jesus in behind Chris Wood. You can see it being really effective. And even though they lost Elliot Anderson, I really like the addition in midfield of Schlager. I think he is such a talented player. But yeah, I think Nottingham Forest will have a very good season and qualify for Europe. And then we get to Aston Villa and Tottenham, who could interchange, to be honest. Aston Villa, I think, have lost a few too many players at quality positions for my liking. Emiliano Martinez is out the door, it looks like. We've also seen them lose Morgan Rogers. And obviously they've lost a lot of squad options such as Luca Digne and Yuri Tielemans. But I also think if they lose Ezri Konsa, that could seal it for me in terms of them not finishing in the top 8. I'm recording this and currently it looks like he will stay, so I'm going to go off that. But just adding a caveat that if Konsa does go, I think that's going to be very hard for them to get a top 8 finish. And then we go on to Tottenham, Tottenham Hotspur, who obviously finished 17th last year. So what makes me think they're going to finish 11 places better this year? Well, if you imagine it, just for a second, just walk with me here. I know this is going to sound weird. You close your eyes and you imagine Tottenham Hotspur right now, but they weren't called Tottenham Hotspur. They were called London White. And ignore the last years, this is this year's Premier League predictions. I like the signings, I like the manager, and I think they've got a good enough defence where they can compete in big games, maybe not win them, but they're not going to get blown out of the water. And as long as you're doing that, I don't think they'll lose too much in terms of morale like they did last year. It just felt like the squad gave up. I don't think this manager's going to let it happen. I like De Zerbi and his tactics. I like the signings. As I said, Sandro Tonali is a great player. An overpay, but again, Tottenham weren't in a position to try and get great deals for players. They weren't going to attract too many top-level players, given they have no Europe. So I think getting Tonali, Jean-Paul Van Hecke through the door is massive. I'm not the biggest Mateus Fernandes fan, to be honest, but I still think Tottenham have more than enough right now to finish 6th. And if they make any more signings, that will just further solidify them in terms of their attacking output. Now, I know it's a bit of a mad one having Man United out of the top 4 when they just finished 3rd. And in theory, they should be getting better. They have more continuity now. Everyone's a bit more settled. But I actually don't really see it with Michael Carrick. And I think their squad is actually super depleted. I think they haven't done enough in the transfer window. I'm not the biggest fan of some of their squad options, like an Amad Diallo. I'm just not as big a fan of him. I think Benjamin Sesko needs to be a big striker for them this year because Brian Mbeumo is going to be asked to play a lot of minutes, and I worry that with the Champions League as well, he could be really fatigued. We've seen it at times before where he's picked up little injuries and his form's kind of dropped off a bit. And then we get into the whole Bruno discussion. Will he have a 21 assist season again? I don't think so. I think that a lot of those assists were obviously from set pieces and corners, which I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm not knocking it, but I do think that it was an abnormally successful season for him in terms of assist numbers, and even if his creativity takes the slightest step back, it would still make him a world-class player, but that's a lot of goals they're missing out on. And now we're on to the top 4. Who do I think will win the Premier League and who do I think will challenge? So, we're going to start off with 4th place, Liverpool. 3rd place, Chelsea. 2nd place, Manchester City, because first place will be Arsenal for the second year running. Now, we'll get on to Arsenal and Manchester City shortly. Just want to touch on Liverpool and Chelsea first. Liverpool, I think, actually have better star power than Chelsea. I think on form, Liverpool probably have the best 4 out of 6. I think Palmer and Rodgers, maybe João Pedro, but I think Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, Virgil van Dijk, and Ryan Gravenberch are top players. The issue is they haven't been on form enough, and I do worry that first year of Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth, it was not smooth sailing at the start by any means. They lost quite a few of their opening games, and I worry that with this squad in Liverpool, which has no defensive depth, which has no depth on the right wing, do worry that they'll get off to a slow start, and that will ultimately leave them too much of a mountain to climb in terms of the title challenge. As for Chelsea, I really think they could be a dark horse this season. And they've spent a lot of money, as they always do. They've spent like 2.5 billion in the last 10 years. But I do think Morgan Rodgers is a tremendous signing. He would have been great at Arsenal off the left, and I think he's even more suited to this Chelsea role, to be completely honest. Playing in behind João Pedro, who's going to have a breakout season in my opinion, and playing next to Cole Palmer, it should do wonders for him in terms of his goals and assist numbers. I love some of their young prospects, Giovanni Quenda, Joshua Champong, Palestra, and to be fair, I do think that Romeo Lavia and Caicedo, if Lavia can stay healthy, it's such a massive if because he hasn't in his Premier League career. But I think that's a solid 2 in midfield. And then you've still got the Enzo Fernandez question, who's a good player when he's fit and available, but is his head going to be in it? Not sure. So I'm assuming Enzo Fernandez will be gone, and that's why they're not going to go as far as they could. If he stays, I could see them finishing as high as second, but for now I've got them in third. Manchester City then, to be completely honest, not super confident that they'll even finish second. I've had them at fourth at times in the pre-season. I'm not a Maresca fan whatsoever. I didn't see anything in terms of his team and his style of play at Chelsea that makes me think he's going to go to an even bigger job and an even bigger responsibility of following Pep Guardiola and actually improve the team. I can't see it at all. However, I do think Erling Haaland, Antoine Semenyo are top strikers, and ultimately goals win games. And when you have the best goal scorer of his generation and one of the best wingers in the league right now, you're going to win a lot of games. I think the recruitment is necessary. You've got players like Ayoub Bawadi on the way in, Elliot Anderson has come in, and you've got players on the way out like Rodri, Bernardo Silva. I think it's a much needed transition year for Man City, but I think that's what it is. I can't see them coming close to Arsenal, to be honest. I think Arsenal are going to win this league by 10 points minimum. And of course, there's some wishful thinking in there, there's some bias, but I truly think Arsenal already had a gap going into the season before any transfers were made. And in that span, they've signed Bruno Guimaraes, top 3 midfielder in the league when healthy. I think people would have said that even before he joined Arsenal. And I think he allows so much for Arteta in terms of combinations in big games. You can play him as a 6 or as an 8. You can play him with another 6 or with another 8. And he is so fluid, the way he moves off the ball, takes up spaces. He's just such an intelligent footballer. But also it allows Mikel Arteta to rest Declan Rice, to rest Martin Zubimendi, Miles Lewis-Skelly. These are things that we didn't have last year and we still won the league. And with that luxury this year, I think Arsenal take another step in terms of their forward play, attacking ability, having that strong defence, which is going to be the best defence in the league. Again, I have no doubts about it. I think Arsenal are poised to mount an impressive charge for the Premier League, and I think ultimately they will win back-to-back Premier League titles. Alright, so those are my 20-1 Premier League predictions, and now we're going to get into some award shouts and then a few rogue random things as well. Starting out with the top scorer, what a shock, Erling Haaland. I don't really think there's any need to talk about this for too long. He's been the top scorer for all of the time he's been in the Premier League, and I think that's going to continue this season, provided he stays healthy, of course. Top assistman, I actually got this bang on last year. I said Bruno Fernandes, and he went and broke the assist record. Don't think we'll be seeing the assist record broken this year, but I do think Bukayo Saka will be the top assistman in the league. Provided he plays enough minutes, I think his set-piece delivery, his 1v1 ability out wide, and the fact that Arsenal actually have consistent striker play now in terms of Havertz and Gyökeres both wanting to be in the box, compared to Jesus and Trossard, who has played up front at times, I think Saka stands a good chance to win the top assistman this year. Continuing with Arsenal, clean sheets, I'm going with Arsenal, David Raya, Gabriel, William Saliba, Urian Timber, Hincapié, Calafiori, Ben White and Christian Mosquera. It's the best defence in the league, I don't really need to say much more. Player of the season, I'm going to go with Erling Haaland because I think he's going to have a really big bounce back season, which is mad to think that last season when he scored 28 goals, that's a bad year for him. But I do think he'll hit 30 plus goals in the league this year, and I think he's going to win player of the season. Manager of the season, I've given it to Arteta just because I think Arsenal will win the league quite comfortably. However, my very, very close second is going to be Xabi Alonso because I think he's going to guide Chelsea to a top 3 finish in his first year. My young player of the season now, really confident on this one, Luka Vuskovic. Mentioned him earlier when talking about Brighton. What a player. For those of you that don't know, he came through at Hajduk Split when he was just 16 years old and he caught the attention of every big club in Europe, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Tottenham managed to win the race for him. Wow, I remember at the time I just thought that's the most impressive signing in their recent history, and then they Spursed it up. He's had numerous loan spells, including a tremendous year at Hamburg last year, where he made the Bundesliga team of the season and scored some amazing goals, including a bicycle kick. He is a defensive monster, he wins aerial duels, ground duels, and I think he is going to make Tottenham regret letting him go. In Brighton's system, the way they want to play out from the back, the way they want to press high and leave space in behind, he's so well suited for it. I can see it now. In a year's time, we're going to be talking about Luka Vuskovic as one of the best defenders in the Premier League. Signing of the season, I think Bruno Guimaraes is going to be so integral. However, I think he will not play as many minutes as the person who I think is going to win this award, Morgan Rogers. I think Morgan Rogers is going to put up the goals and assist numbers at Chelsea that we expected him to do last year, and that's going to really shine through when he's helping Chelsea mount a pretty sustained charge on the top 3 of the Premier League. My flop of the season now, Mateus Fernandes. Did mention I'm not a fan of him in the Tottenham analysis, but I do think at that price tag, it's a massive, massive overpay. I did not think he was exceptional last year with West Ham. I thought he's had great moments back at Southampton and then last year as well. But I just think ultimately it's a lot of money for someone with a lot of holes in their game. Great on the ball, great going forward, has an eye for goal, but I don't think has put it all together yet. And ultimately, I don't think he'll be that big a signing and have that impact that Tottenham fans think he will. Biggest underachievers, I'm going to go with Sunderland. It's not because I think they'll be bad, but I think they're going to have a good run in the Europa League, and as such, they'll fall well short of European qualification this year. Biggest overachievers, I'm going to go with Nottingham Forest. I think that Oliver Glasner, the squad they have, the home form, will contribute to a very, very impressive season in the Premier League. First manager sacked. Every year, this is tough to predict because could it be a manager of a big team that's failing and they want to try to save the season early, or could it be one of the promoted teams who are trying to see what works and find a formula to win them some Premier League games? I've opted for the latter, and I think Gyökeres will be the first manager to go. Nothing against him, I just think Hull are probably the most trigger happy of the 3 in terms of the managers that they've got. And then my random shout to end off the video is that there will not be a manager sacked for the first 2 months of the season. And yeah, I think that it will be very quiet in terms of rumblings about firings and stuff. I think teams are going to give some grace to a lot of the managers. Obviously, it's a World Cup season, shortened pre-season, so I think that no manager will be sacked for 2 months. But that is everything. Thank you guys so much for supporting and watching the video. As always, it means the world to me. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok. All of the links are in the description. And what do you think will happen this Premier League season? Until next time, guys. See ya.